Hi there, Professor Malan, Brian, all the CS50 community. I'm a professional musician, a classical guitarist specifically. I've been taking CS50 as an introduction to coding during these times where we're staying at home trying to develop a hobby and potentially a side profession, let's say. And just to say, it surpassed any expectations I had about programming and just how exciting it could be. So my question is, what have you seen as overlaps between arts and coding? And are there perhaps overarching trends that you may have observed, perhaps amongst your CS50 alumni community?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Brian, do you want to speak to this first, given your musical tendencies?
Yeah, sure. So speaking more generally about the arts, David and I actually a couple years ago now, we're teaching a class on programming in the digital humanities. So the digital humanities is an entire field that's really all about the intersection of humanities and the arts and computing. So there's a lot of interesting work that's going on there. With regards to music specifically, CS50 actually had a problem about music a couple of years ago. I'll paste the link to that problem there if you're interested. But that was a program where you could write some C code in order, oh, I see David posted the link too, where you can write some C code to actually generate some music of your own based on some representation of sheet music. But especially now with artificial intelligence, the intersection between computation and music is getting very interesting, where there's actually artificial intelligence, in particular variants of neural networks, that are able to generate musical compositions that are almost indistinguishable from compositions that a human might have composed themselves. One of the most famous ones there is OpenAI's MuseNet, which is a neural network that can be used. I just pasted a link to it there. But you can hear samples of music that was generated by artificial intelligence. And this, I think, is one of the really interesting powers that some modern techniques in artificial intelligence are now able to do, is they can generate compositions like that.
Yeah, and suffice it to say too, there's this intersection of computing and music, certainly when it comes to consumer applications. If you have Shazam, for instance, on your phone, this is a piece of software on iPhone and Android that you can hit a button and figure out what song is playing in a restaurant or at a friend's house or the like. And it does that generally by quantizing the music into small little signatures or fingerprints that can then be looked up in a database. YouTube and Facebook and others are using computing to detect when copyright has been violated and someone has maybe uploaded when they shouldn't a copy of some song by looking at patterns that uniquely identify that song as well. And at the risk of maybe embarrassing, but hopefully flattering, Brian himself is quite the musician, and I've just pasted into the chat window 60 seconds of Brian playing the piano on the stage of Sanders Theater at Harvard. And in fact, it was Brian's talents a few years ago that inspired that new music problem set that he too pasted earlier.